Hi, I'm Bobby Hull of the former Winnipeg Jets of the World Hockey Association. Let's go back to November or December of 1971. Just about Grey Cup time out in Vancouver. Landed in Vancouver, checked in at the Hotel Vancouver, and a good friend of mine, Bob Turner, was in the lobby and asked me if I would be kind enough to come across the road to another hotel just adjacent to the Vancouver and meet with his boss, who just happened to be Mr. Ben Hatskin, owner of the Winnipeg Jets. I said, let me take my bag upstairs and freshen up a little. I'll be down and we'll go and visit with Ben. And that was the first time that I'd really, that anyone had made any gestures towards a new league. There were rumblings and grumblings that there was going to be a new league, but that was the first time anyone had ever approached me. I walked in and met Mr. Hatskin, a rough, tough kind of a guy I liked. I knew that his word was his bond, and after making small talk, he said, Bobby, I'm offering you a 10-year contract of $250,000 a year to come and play with us for the Winnipeg Jets in Winnipeg. And I said, that is a very substantial amount, Mr. Hatskin, but I think my contract isn't over until the end of this year. That would be the 71-72 season. And I said, I think that the Chicago Blackhawks will pay me $250,000 a year. And it ended quite abruptly there. Offered $250,000, which I'd never been offered before, without even asking for it. And then he said, another $100,000 if you wanted to coach or manage. So that's where it all ended, as far as Ben Hatskin might have been concerned. But then Gary Davidson and Murphy likely, and they had a henchman lawyer by the name of, I believe, Reagan, Don Reagan. They were in it to help form this WHA, and from then on it was through my accountant here in Chicago, Harvey Weinberg, where they communicated and wanted to know how much I wanted to come to Winnipeg. Of course, I told him I didn't want to go to Winnipeg. I didn't want to leave the greatest city in the world with the greatest sports fan in the world, Chicago, Illinois, and which has been proven. They only supported 2 baseball teams, a football team, a basketball team, 2 hockey teams, and as many girls teams as wanted to set up and start up. And they went through my accountant. Everybody at that time knew by then that this World Hockey Association was a possibility, and started to make a joke of it or make serious talk of it. And even I, before anything really happened, I gathered the guys up, and we have some folks here from LA, and I think Murphy was from LA, if I'm not mistaken, or lived there. And I gathered the guys up one trip into Los Angeles to play the Kings, and got them all together and said, guys, this is what I would like to do. My contract's up at the end of this year, and I think a few other guys. I said, I'm going to go to the WHA and tell them that we are your Chicago franchise, and we're not paying you any money, but we are coming along, and each one of you whose contract ends at the end of next year, you're welcome to join us, and we'll own this together and share the proceeds if indeed there might be some. So we got along that far. If I'd have had my druthers, it would have happened prior to that. The NHL never had any competition, and I thought many times about going to Europe because of the way they were running things. The NHL was the only game in town. They worked together. That was the original six. I broke in 1957, and the expansion didn't take place until, the expansion didn't take place until 1967. So I was there for 10 years as an original six player. And I know that when Tommy Ivan would sign you, he'd say, "Now, Bobby, don't tell anyone what you're making." I said, "Don't worry, Mr. Ivan. I'm as embarrassed about what I'm making as what you are. Give it to me." So that, and knowing that with a few exhibition games, they paid for all the expenses of one season. I stood on the blue line many nights while they played the national anthem, multiplying 40, at that time 35 games, times an average ticket price, and playoffs and parking and radio and TV, et cetera, and knew that our average salary might have been 10 or 12,000 at that time, and that might have been a lot. And I knew that 10 times 20 guys, how much is that? 2 million? And I knew that they made that in just a few games. So I said, we are getting the dirty end of the stick. Someone is making too much money, and we, the players who put on the show, we need to make more money. So that's how I felt about the structure of the NHL at that time. Not many of us were very happy with the salaries that we were making. And at that time, the guys that should have been helping us were not. Guys that had been in the league for 10 years before I got there could have been talking with the management, saying, "Look, I've been here 10 years. I want $100,000, and that would help the rest of us to know how much we were worth." And those kind of guys didn't come forward until one time in the 60s, I told them that I wanted $100,000. And one of those guys that had been in the league for 10 years said, "Who is this brazen upstart talking about $100,000? So that's mainly why likely the new group would like to get somebody that had some longevity in the league, and that had been there for a while, and that didn't mind to speak his mind. And I guess I was the right guy. I was the first $1 million athlete of any kind. And it was all in jest.
With DirecTV, I can get live TV and on demand together. Football, Housewives. Football, Housewives.
Whoops. I just want to talk.
Get your TV together. Call 1-800-DIRECTV to save up to $120.
Whopper, 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 Junior, Double, Triple, Whopper, Impossible or Bacon Whopper. I rule this day. And BK, have it your way.
My name is Cassandra Ramos and I drive trucks for Frito-Lay. 15 years I've been with the company. Being a female driver is adventurous and it's rewarding and it's fun and it's hard. No matter how long you've been driving, you can't get comfortable with that thing and take it for granted. Since I started, I've had a few women tell me that I inspired them to go get their CDL. I don't think that they should hold themselves back from it. Some companies, you're going out of state for weeks at a time. I mean, that's not really suitable. As for Frito-Lay, we're home every day. I think it's awesome that Frito-Lay has given me an opportunity, and everybody has an opportunity. Like, even if I wanted to go into management, they give you an opportunity to pay for your school. It all depends on the person. You actually feel like people want to see you succeed here, which is nice.
Man, Drive Time makes it easy to buy a car. You can pretty much do it all on your phone and your own time. I got approved, found tons of cars that I like, and got my personalized financing right here. It's kind of like I'm already at a dealership.
Hey, yeah, you are in a Drive Time dealership.
Hey.
Cool. How?
Oh, yeah. Technically, anywhere you are with your phone, you're pretty much in a Drive Time dealership.
Oh, right, because I can basically do it all on my phone.
Correct.
Get your down payment, monthly payment, and find the car you need all on your phone.
Who says you can't go for bold without going broke? Get the brands you want, the prices you want, whenever you want. TJ Maxx, where you can always afford to be you to the max.
Finally, they got down to the nitty-gritty, and Harvey said, well, Bobby, what would it take for you to go to Winnipeg? I said, Harvey, I told you I'm not going to Winnipeg. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here in this great city. He said, but maybe if you give them a figure, they might get off your back. I said, okay. And this is how I reasoned it, and he should have known better. I said, if I go to Winnipeg and sign a contract with Ben Hatskin for a 10-year, $1,250,000, and the league folds, I don't want Ben Hatskin to be holding to me for $1 million, because I like the guy and like the way he's operated. I said, how about this? I said, how about if they gave me a bonus of $1 million, then they'd have themselves a hockey player. Now, not thinking real clearly, just wanting to get them off my back and kind of saying that as a jest. Ha ha, give me $1 million and you've got yourself a hockey player. Knowing at that time there's never been $1 million player of any kind. And thinking that they'd say, who is this cowboy wanting $1 million? So that's what I thought there were 9 franchises at that time. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there were 9 franchises that started the WHA, and I can't name them all for you, but it's common knowledge. 9 times 100,000 is almost $1 million. And it wasn't going to hurt, I didn't think, a lot of these guys to come up with $110,000. That would have made up the $1 million. And then I'd have had my $1 million. Ben Hatskin wouldn't be beholding to me for the other $1 million if the league happened to fold after the first year, and everyone would be happy. My extravagant wife would have been happy, my 5 kids would have been happy, and away we go. Ha ha. A day or two later, they had $500,000, and a day or two later, they had $750,000, and I said, Harvey, I'm gone, because if they've got $750,000, Ben Hatskin somehow will pull a rabbit out of his hat and he'll come up with another $250,000. Now, I'm gone without I, yes, no, kiss my you-know-what, or anything. And this was just between Harvey and the WHA guys, like Lee Murphy and Gary Davidson and the rest of them. I signed nothing. I didn't even talk to them. But I told them that if they gave me $1 million, they had themselves a player. And they came up with $1 million, and they had themselves a player. And there's the book, World Hockey Association, Alumni Association, and Bobby Hull gives WHA credibility with his jump from the Blackhawks. And there's my beautiful suit and the beautiful check that was given to me. We flew to Minneapolis, and that's where I signed for the $1 million, and then came back to Winnipeg and had the big crowd at Portage in Maine. And of course, Harvey was right there when I'm up on the dais, and I had the check. I said, there are 4 banks, one in each corner here. Go and see if this is good. He came back in a few minutes, and he said, and I said, Ben, I can sign the rest of the contract. My tenure with you at $250,000 a year for 10 years, or as long as I play, and $100,000 if I want to play or coach. The NHL thought they owned a player because they signed a contract, and in order to get more of those smarter, smaller, more fleet players that they weren't scouting over here in North America, they went to Europe and they brought them over. That was one big deal that they were able to. They had all their scouting was done. All they had to do was go to Europe and get a Makita or a Gretzky or a Brett Hull or et cetera, et cetera. This year they thought they owned them year after year after year. But we were fortunate, and they did enjoy me from joining the Winnipeg Jets, even to practice with them. We were fortunate to, and maybe I'm skipping over a little bit, but we got a black judge down in Philadelphia by the name of Higginbotham. And when we got a black judge, I said, step one. And at the end of it all, and I'll never forget what the judge said, nobody owns nobody. And he quoted a guy that was one of our presidents that lived here in Illinois by the name of Abe Lincoln. And as soon as Judge Higginbotham said, nobody owns nobody, I said, so the ball's in our court now. Arthur Wirtz didn't expect that I would challenge him and beat him. No one had ever challenged these guys before. I was the first guy that ever challenged them and beat them. And of course they didn't like it, but it was stupid of them to challenge me at that time, knowing what the results could be. And by them challenging me and the WHA and yours truly winning the lawsuits, I cost them $1 billion. Not $250,000 a year. I cost them $1 billion. And that was from dropping salaries or dropping attendance, raising salaries, and everything else that goes along with it. I know that one organization in the NHL, after I signed, went to each one of their players and upgraded their salaries 3 times without asking questions. But I was the only guy that took the heat. And it wasn't a greedy thing, and it wasn't a selfish thing, and it wasn't I'll show you type of deal. It was the fact that there were many areas, smaller areas in Canada and the United States that deserved to have professional hockey. And of course, if the NHL didn't think that that was what should be done, then they closed the door on them. And I thought that a lot of these areas needed to have some professional hockey. And I was happy that we were able to take professional hockey to a lot of these areas in Canada and the United States. And just to let you know what kind of a league we had, the first year that the 2 leagues joined, 79 and 80, after the first year, out of the top 20 scorers that first year, 10 of them were from the WHA.
I got some pictures
How are you, pal?
that you'll enjoy.
How's your
My son Larry?
Larry?
Yeah. Well, Larry was there. Remember this?
Well,
Up in Duluth in 72?
Yes. Now, who's this?
That was John Ladner. He was working for us.
Okay.
at that
There's
time.
Ben Hatskin, guys.
Yeah, there's Ben. And Bobby a little younger, and me a little younger. 72. Oh, Reggie Fleming. of
Reggie
course.
there.
Reggie's up there. I think he's right above me or something.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, well, you can have that, or they can have it. Okay. All right.
Well, there are the names right there.
Yeah.
Little guy in, I don't know whether, Rick who, that died on us.
Oh, yeah.
The one I hit, the one I elbowed in the jaw one night. And Reggie came and thought he was going to.
And you hit
and
Red, one of the two of you were bloody.
Well, he hit me with his stick when I.
We were in the amphitheater.
Yeah.
And, oh, man, yeah.
The press was always good to me because I was good to them. I made their jobs easy because I'd talk to them after every game and give them some insight of what's going on. Not like these kids today saying a few stupid things instead of saying we got out hustled, we got outshot, we got out bumped, and we got outscored. It's easy. It's an easy game. You skate, you move the puck, you go to get it back. Defense go up together and they come back together. Don't get split or you're in trouble. Goaltenders stand up and 90% of them will hit you. It's an easy game, but everybody wants to make it tough. And we had the same thing there. And then they got some of them that didn't know players. Some of these managers and coaches that didn't know players put together a bunch of henchmen. Guys that were 210 pounds plus, 6 feet plus. And they were going to win by intimidation. And of course, to me, that wasn't hockey. And we had to put up with this through the entire 7 years of the WHA? It was impossible to do that because we executed the basic fundamentals of the game too well. And besides Patty Stapleton turning the brine down in Indianapolis, so the ice was soft, so we couldn't skate. We could play his game too. And I got wind of it. And when the game started, I said, guys, over the red line and dump it in. Over the red line, dump it in. They won't know what hit them because if they didn't have the, if we didn't have the puck, they didn't know how to play, because we had to have the puck so they could come and whack, bang, crash, spear, and etc. So until the third period, we just dumped it in, and had those guys out of their minds wondering what the hell is going on out there. Then all of a sudden I told Anders and Alfie, Anders Hedberg and Alfie Nilsson, Lars-Erik Schuberg, I said, pour it on now, guys. And we went through them like a dose of salts. We likely were the first team, the Winnipeg Jets, to bring over a group at that time. Börje Salming and Inge Hammarström had come over with the Toronto Maple Leafs the year before. Two great players. Even though Harold Ballard said that Hammarström could go into the corner with a dozen eggs in his pocket and come out without any of them broken, he was still a great player. Börje Salming for years was the best player, not only on Toronto, but one of the best players in the National Hockey League. We brought over guys like, I mentioned, Anders Hedberg, Alfie Nilsson, Lars-Erik Schuberg, Danny LeBrotten, Willie Lindstrom. Tommy Bergman came from Detroit to us. Kurt Larson, a goaltender, Mats Lind, and a couple of Finns by the name of Heikki Liiranta and Veli-Pekka Kettala. You had to know how to say those names. And we were the first team that really brought over a group of them at one time. And they turned out, not all of them, but the general bunch of them turned out to be great players. We ended up with 4 very, very good franchises. And they were in Edmonton and Winnipeg and in Quebec and Hartford. They were 4 very good teams. And at that time I said, guys, you've got your making for a real World Hockey Association now. I said, get to Europe and tie up the Swedes, the Finns, the Czechs. And I said, the Russians will get so sick of playing amongst themselves, they'll come in, and then you'll have a real World Hockey Association. You don't need to be in the NHL, because I said, if you think you're going to the NHL without being raped, you have another thought coming. When they invited us, and we were sold down the river by Eagleson and that rear end that we had representing us, I can't remember his name. If I don't like someone, I can't remember their name. Roberts, Ron Roberts, and my dad said, Robert, be careful of a guy with 2 first names. And I end up playing for Billy Ray and Tommy Ivan. Beware of guys with 2 first names, always. When these teams went in the NHL, they were only allowed to keep 2 or 3 of their players.
Want to know that?
Oh yes, source it out. We being able to enter into the European Ice Hockey Federation and the Czechoslovakian Ice Hockey Federation and then the Soviet Ice Hockey Federation to get some of their great players over here. When the NHL expanded, they went from scouting the Makitas, the Henri Richards, the Cournoyers, the Lafleurs, to the 6 foot plus, 200 plus pounders, as I had mentioned before. Jack Stanfield
Houston Aeros
played for the Arrows. I think when Howe was there, they had a pretty good hockey club. Of course, I knew Jack because of his brother Freddie, who played with Dennis in St. Catharines, and not only a great little player, but also a very astute businessman, from what I understand. Ralphie Backstrom, one of the great skaters that came out of Kirkland Lake, and to play with the Montreal Canadiens and win 8 or 10 Stanley Cups, almost as many as the Pocket. And likely in 1974, when we went to Russia, Team Canada, when over in Russia, he was our best player. Playing in the WHA took me to Winnipeg, where I'd never been before. And my dad said, "Robert, you're not going to like it. You're not going to like the winters there." Well, he was right. Like generally he always was. And my second year there, in 1973-74, 6 weeks in a row it never got above 20 below. Some of those days 40 below with the wind blowing just as hard. And if it ain't the end of the world, you can see it from there. It took me to Winnipeg, and my kids, they loved it. It was a great place to bring up kids. Their hockey programs in Winnipeg were second to none, and my kids enjoyed that, especially Brett Hull, so very much.